We are welcomed into worship this morning with words by Ian Riddle. Come one, come all. Come with your missing pieces and your extra screws. Come with your hard edges and your soft spots. Come with your bowed heads and upright spines. Come all you flamboyant and drab, verbose and quiet, fidgeting and lethargic. All you with large vision and tender hearts. All you with small courage and tender fears. Bring your lisp and your stutter and your song. Bring your gravel and your drawl and your lilt. Bring your anger and your joy and your righteous indignation, misfits and conformists and everyone in between. Come into this space and be welcome. Bring who you are, bring where you've traveled, bring what you long for, and let us worship together. Our introit is We'll Come Shining Through by Brett Hessla, and it will be sung by our very own Katie Weintraub.
Till these hard days pass, we will hold fast to who we are and what we do. Till these hard days pass, we will hold fast. You and I will come shining through. We'll come shining through. We'll come shining through. This much I know is true. We'll come shining through. We'll come shining through. You and I will come shining through. We'll come shining through. We'll come shining through. This much I know is true. We'll come shining through. We'll come shining through. You and I will come shining through.
Patience Gardner will be offering words for our chalice lighting this morning. Patience.
Good morning. As I was thinking about Chloe's sermon today, it brought back a lot of memories for me because my very first church that I ever served as a UU minister was in Provincetown, Massachusetts. And everyone in the church, this was 1989, 1990, everyone was part of the LGBTQ community. Everyone in the church. And I felt immense discrimination at that time. It was at the height of the AIDS epidemic. So discrimination and almost hatred toward gay men was prevalent. But what I came to see as I was there as a minister for a while, that it had nothing to do with this discrimination of sexuality, that what it's really all about is love, that the individuals there were working towards self-love because they had been so discriminated against. I married many lesbian couples out there, and I could see the love that was in them for one another. Deep, deep love. And it's really all about love. So I would like to light this chalice this morning, lovingly, prayerfully, that we might be accepting and loving, and that the light of that may grow and grow and grow. Amen.
Amen. It's in that spirit of love and of love growing that we light the flaming chalice of our faith. Our opening hymn is number 345 in our hymn book. With joy, we claim the growing light.
With joy we claim the growing light, advancing thought and widening view. The larger freedom, clearer sight, which from the old unfold the new. With wider view we loftier goal, with fuller light more good to see. With freedom truer self-control, with knowledge deeper reverence be.
Good morning again, and welcome to worship from the Old Ship Meeting House, the place of worship for First Parish in Hingham, Massachusetts, Unitarian Universalists. My name is Chloe Bride. I'm the interim director of religious education here at Old Ship Church. Our Reverend, the Reverend Ken Reed Brown, has the day off, but he sends his wishes. Welcome to old timers and to newcomers alike. If you are new, we invite you to learn more about us on our website, oldshipchurch.org, and we look forward to getting to know you. Our fellowship hour, a time for conversation, will immediately follow this service. That's also on the same Zoom link you're on now. One announcement this morning: you're invited to join us Thursday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. for a workshop consisting of 6 sessions. Myself, along with Susan Carrillo and Abby and Mary Diamond Kissaday, will be hosting a workshop on transgender inclusion in our congregation. We invite you to join us to learn more about this important topic. You can find more information in the newsletter or by contacting me. We are, as you know, in the midst of our annual Stewardship Pledge Drive. This morning, we're grateful to have Lauren Godot, a member of the Children's Religious Education Committee, with us to say a few words about what Old Ship means to her and her family. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Good morning, everybody. Old Ship is important to me and my family and plays a very important part of our lives. Old Ship serves as a religious home for myself and our 2 young daughters. My husband and I come from 2 separate traditions, Catholicism and Judaism. So Unitarian Universalism at Old Ship is just right. It's just the right fit for us. And we believe it helps our daughters understand what is important to us and will help them in their life journeys. Old Ship allows my children to grow in a wonderful community of people. And that's for myself too. It's a place of peace for us that educates and reinforces our traditions and values and offers new ones. Through participation in religious education and participation in services at Old Ship, we affirm and promote Unitarian Universalist principles that are so important for our children to understand and live each day. These include teaching our daughters about the inherent worth and dignity of each and every person, acceptance of one another, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and the goal of a world community with peace, freedom, justice for all. These are all things that the more my family can talk about these things and live these things, the better off I think we can be. We are very happy and grateful to be at Old Ship and are just really glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Lauren. It's lovely hearing from you this Sunday morning.
Thank you.
For our Time for All Ages today, I want to introduce you to a chant that I learned from one of my mentors. We sang it in the opening days of the pandemic. The chant comes from Julian or Juliana of Norwich. Julian lived during the Middle Ages, a hard time when there were plagues, something like our pandemic, and violent uprisings by peasants asking for more rights. Julian was someone who left society and lived in isolation. This isolation meant that Julian could lead a life more like a saint or someone well respected and thought holy by her people. She wanted to study God and connect to God. Julian was even the first woman to write a book in English, at least that we still have. So the chant that I want to teach you this morning comes from her book, and you can repeat after me the words. So we'll start there. All shall be well.
All shall be well,
And all shall be well.
and all shall be well,
And all manner of things shall be well.
and all manner of things shall be well.
So that's it. It's only 3 lines. And so now we're going to put it to a bit of a song or chant, and you can repeat that after me. All shall be well,
All shall be well,
and all shall be well,
and all shall be well,
and all manner of things shall be well.
and all manner of things shall be well.
Now, I like this chant because it's simple and because I think it fits a number of situations. It can be reassuring, like a blanket. If you're feeling scared or sad, you can sing it to yourself. It can also be like a prayer that everything shall be well, perhaps for the world or for yourself in a situation. But it can also be an aspiration or a wish, an intention that you set, something that you're going to do. Perhaps you're making a commitment to make things well in your life or in your community or your church or your school. You might make a commitment to make all things well. So let's try it one more time. We're not going to do any repeats. Perhaps we'll do it twice through. So here we go. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. So perhaps when you need some encouragement or some settling down in your week, you can remember that chant. Thank you. On that note, we come to our time of sharing joys, sorrows, and concerns. You're invited to share your joys, sorrows, and concerns in our chat during this time. And of course, you may simply hold in your heart whatever you're carrying this morning. I'm going to light a candle as a continued prayer for those affected by COVID, especially amid rising case numbers. I will also light a candle of joy for the warm weather and sunshine that we got yesterday. I think that it provides healing energy for all of us. And then we also have a candle of thanks for the flowers this morning. provided by Diane and Tom Wilson. The candles also burn for joys, sorrows, and concerns written in the chat or unspoken among us this morning. Please get comfortable and join me in the spirit of prayer. God, spirit that dwells inside us, we hold worry. We hold worry for those among us who suffer, those who have new diagnoses, who look down long roads of treatment and many doctors. We hold worry and soft hearts for those who deal with struggles that feel unending, grief for loved ones, confusion over life decisions, mistakes in our week, regrets, and pain, both physical and mental. We hold worry and grief as a community and ask the Holy to embrace us with loving arms in this time. We also hold deep worry for our world, fear over the continuation of COVID, and constant reminders of the changes in our climate and on our precious only earth. Spirit of love and generosity, we hold these worries close, and we also carry gratitude for those who work in many ways to make change and who fight for a better world. They are the source of hope in the midst of our anxieties. Mysterious presence of beauty and promise, we give thanks for times when our worries melt away, times of play that help us get grounded and remind us what's important, moments of joy and connection, either virtual or in person, and loved ones that show us that we are perfect just as we are. Blessed presence that holds all people and all emotions, comfort us through these times. Help us stay grounded like an old oak tree and flexible like a palm tree in the breeze. We are a community that can hold all. Bless us. Please join me in a couple moments of silent reflection. anthem this morning is Here Comes the Sun by George Harrison.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, long, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's all right. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes.
This morning's reading will be shared by David Nelson. David.
Our reading is Marginal Wisdom from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest is false. You are whole or broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Who tells its truth in many hues. Life, we are taught to think either or, to believe the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in human potential or a power beyond a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes, good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more generous than monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins hold the center. Here ends the reading.
We are invited to contribute to our plate to support all our shared ministries. And thank you, David, for the reading. We are also invited to make a gift to our monthly outreach offering this morning that benefits the School of Leadership Afghanistan, or SOLA, an Afghan-led private boarding school for girls, the first of its kind in Afghanistan. SOLA's mission is to provide Afghan girls a rigorous education that promotes critical thinking and a sense of purpose and respect for self and others. We heard from the founder of SOLA on Easter, and it was a really inspirational story. There's a donate link on our homepage, oldshipchurch.org. You're welcome to visit there and donate at your leisure. Our offering this morning is None of Us Alone by Mark Miller, and it's sung by Chris Marr.
Why am I abandoned? Why forsaken? Will anyone hear my cry? I am alone. I am here with you. I am standing with you. I am always with you. None of us is alone. We are here with you. We are standing with you. We are praying with you. None of us is alone. We are here with you. We are standing with you. We are praying with you. None of us is alone. Is alone. You're not alone.
Wow, thank you, Chris. I was working in an office in Vermont. My job was winding down. My boss was getting ready to leave the nonprofit, and I spent most of my time searching for some work to do. One day, I stumbled upon an opportunity, a camp looking for volunteers. 1 week, housing and food provided. The camp that I had found sitting on my computer in a cubicle in Vermont happened to be run by an organization called Outright Vermont. Outright Vermont is a nonprofit that works with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, and non-binary youth within the state. The youth group here at Old Ship Church, in fact, visited this organization during their service trip to Vermont a few years ago. So sitting in my cubicle, I filled out an application to volunteer as a camp counselor and started to formulate in my head a pitch to my boss. Our nonprofit worked to help first-generation kids get into college. I thought some LGBT kids were in fact first-generation kids that we helped in our work too. I could give a workshop and voila, my presence would be justified to go to camp. And it worked. I was signed up as a counselor and would spend one of my last weeks on the job at Queer Camp. Now, you may have noticed that I just used the term queer here. Queer in its modern usage is an umbrella term for sexual and gender minorities who are not heterosexual and/or are not cisgender. Originally meaning strange or particular, queer came to be used pejoratively against those with same-sex desires or relationships in the late 1800s. Beginning in the 1980s, about a century later, queer activists began to reclaim the word as a deliberately provocative and politically radical alternative to the more polite language used in some parts of the gay community. And while I want to acknowledge that some people still feel uncomfortable with the word queer, associating it still with a crueler history, today the word queer has successfully been reclaimed and is found everywhere. From identifying disciplines like queer studies at universities to television shows like Queer Eye, a reality show about fashion on Netflix. It's a term that encompasses most of the LGBT community without the rather arduous job of repeating an acronym that never really seems to encompass everybody. You know, the L, the G, that it can go on and on. So instead we have queer. We started camp how a staff member always starts camp, with orientation. But Camp Outright made things a little different. They made sure we were queer literate. You see, I identify as queer, but I didn't fully understand all the aspects of that before camp. They made sure we really understood not only sexual minorities, so sexual minorities, for example, someone like me, a woman who dates mostly women, but also gender minorities. They explained the term transgender and how, like queer, it functions as an umbrella term, meaning anyone whose gender identity or expression differs from what was assigned at birth, including folks who identify as non-binary, those who don't fall into the traditional bounds of male or female. Transgender or trans also functions as an identity, taken on by some folks to place themselves within the bounds of a group. Camp also introduced me to identifying pronouns and why they are important. My first year at Queer Camp was 9 years ago, I believe. The work of identifying pronouns, for example, saying something like, my name is Chloe, and I use she, her pronouns, in many circles was just starting to rise to people's awareness. At camp, they explained that pronouns like they and ze, that they are more neutral alternatives to our typical she and he. And even they explained that some people don't like pronouns at all. One of the counselors named Natty wanted to just be called Natty, writing on Natty's name tag, just Natty. So in a sentence, it was something like this. Have you seen Natty? I need to now tell Natty something about one of Natty's campers. The camper, he ate something he wasn't supposed to, and now, well, you can imagine the rest of the scenario. Along with classes on queer and trans identity, we were also reminded of the struggles our campers face. We were reminded of statistics about mental health issues and suicide rates, and that many of our campers came from rural areas in Vermont and New Hampshire, places where they drive an hour or two to attend Outright Vermont's weekly support groups and are often the only queer or trans kid in their school or even in their town. And while American society as a whole has become more accepting, many places are still playing catch up. My friend Trisha moved to Florida a few years ago to work as a teacher. She landed in a beautiful beach community near Jacksonville. Upon attending a local UCC, United Church of Christ congregation, our liberal brethren in the Christian world, she was asked if she could sponsor the local high school's first GSA, Gay Straight Alliance. Her first visit to church, they asked her to take on that big of a project, a much needed project. Help our kids start their club. And she did. Talking to her on the phone, amazed, I asked, is this their first GSA? She had previously worked in Brookline, Massachusetts, and in Brookline, their GSA dates back to 1992. Yes, she answered. It was only a couple years ago that a court ensured we could do it. And as she got pushback from the school, they knew they had ground to stand on. A federal appeal court had ruled in 2016 that Florida schools had to allow GSAs if they allowed other extracurricular activities. And while she still endured pushback from her administration, she was firmly assured that they had a right to be there. In fact, the students from that GSA participated in the town's first Pride Festival in 2019, 2 years ago. One of my campers at Camp Outright also reminded me how isolating it can be to be queer in a rural area. She was a trans woman, approximately 18 years old at the time, who lived in a small town about a half an hour north of Burlington. While she had friends in Burlington and across the community there, most of her good friends were on the internet. She worked at a local factory, a good local Vermont employer, and played video games online with her friends. Although she had to take precious days off work, camp was an opportunity to spend quality, intense time with her friends in person, and to get to meet new people, to talk, to be silly, and to even be creative. For the couple of years before she aged out of camp, it was her home. And every year when a small group would meet for a weekend retreat in the winter, my camper would be there. She would again take off work for a day or two just to get to spend time in that community. And it became a kind of home for me too. Not only did I have fun at camp trying new things like a cappella, but I learned about myself. The last summer I volunteered at camp, we began asking a question. For example, were we representing feminine identity enough? As we looked around the room, we realized that most of us were dressed rather masculinely, both because camp involved a lot of running around and because it was the majority. The social message conveyed was to dress more masculine. We seemed to be following the crowd with the choices we were making getting up every morning. We decided that day that for those that felt comfortable, to femme it up, to get out the makeup and the dresses and the nail polish, not because we particularly felt like showing our feminine side at camp, but because some of our campers needed to see that. We wanted to send the message that there wasn't just one way to be at camp. I remember putting on a skirt the next day with purpose and loving sitting around with other staff and campers and painting our nails. For our campers, youth between the ages of 13 and 21, identity was constantly changing. Sometimes it was gender identity. We had a room full of clothes for youth to take and try on, and they could drop some off that didn't fit or take ones that seemed to fit. We also had stick-on name tags always available. They could fill out a new name tag every day because someone might want to try changing pronouns or even their name. One of my campers was a sweet kid from the West Coast. He came to queer camp because he enjoyed wearing different elaborate dresses. At least 3 or 4 days during the week, he would pick a new dress and wear it out of his suitcase. He would go from his typical name to a different name that was associated with the dress. His identity would completely change, and he could do that at camp. But our campers' identities also changed in small ways. It wasn't just these big ways. A sporty kid tried drawing homemade magazines called zines. A kid who wasn't good at sports found a new love for Quidditch, the sport from Harry Potter. And sometimes it wasn't about changing identity, but just giving them space to be. When I put on a skirt for myself and painted my nails, I felt comfortable, like I could have fun at camp as a feminine person. A small part of me was let free. And camp, this little queer utopia that we had for 1 week during the year, also taught me how to be freer in the real world. One big lesson that it taught me was that it was okay to be queer in everything else that I am. These identities can and do fit together. I could be feminine and queer. I could be a minister and queer. I could be one thing and another, and my identities didn't have to be in conflict. Like our reading that said, a river of identities can ebb and flow over static, stubborn rocks in its course. The waters can even come together in harmony. These identities can flow together. I became freer and a more integrated person because of those weeks spent at camp. Those youth, those campers taught me how to live my truth. And they were also good for standing up for themselves and living their truths. They were really brave. And as I've worked with teens over the years, I'm constantly reminded how brave they are. In a past youth group I worked with, they had a tradition of always introducing themselves with their pronouns and always leaving a chair open for Robbie. So it was a chair for Robbie. Robbie represented any new person who might want to join the group, was welcoming. But also Robbie represented any changes that someone may want to make in their time with the group. Robbie is a gender neutral name, and as a result represents room for experimentation and change and a willingness in the group to be there for it, to embrace that change. And when I think about our RE program here at Old Ship, I know at least 2 youth who identify as queer, and I know past children and youth who now embrace that identity. Being welcoming of queer identities and creating queer-friendly spaces is something we do here at Old Ship, especially in the youth group. And I'm proud of the opening and accepting community that exists here. And I also want to encourage us to continue thinking about how we can make room for Robbie. How can we make more room for Robbie or whoever else shows up with us? How do we continue to ensure that everyone can bring their full selves to Old Ship and to our world? For me, this means hosting a transgender inclusion workshop with help from members of the congregation that feel strongly about queer and LGBT inclusion. It also means asking you all to show up for it, to take it with us this spring, or perhaps in the fall, or even on your own. So as we leave today, I hope and pray that our world will have more places for queer folks. More GSAs, more gender neutral bathrooms, more queer camps, more space for femininity, more places where everyone can feel comfortable just being themselves. Let us even have a free chair for someone to just be Robbie. Let us keep creating that community here at Old Ship. May it be so. And I extinguish these flames, but not the love with which they were lit, and not the faith which we carry in our hearts and our lives as we go forth from this day. Amen. Our closing hymn is one of my favorite queer anthems. We are a gentle, angry people. It's number 170 in your gray hymnal.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives.
We are a community guided by the spirit of respect, reverence, humility, and love. May we spread that love and welcome to our world. Amen Blessed be.
May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and the rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you, may God hold you ever in the palm of his hand.
Go in peace.